Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Sanders, and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today, we're going to talk about a watch that I've come to learn about more recently, and this is the watches of Moritz Grossmann. I had seen them at the Watch Time show, and in fact, I think I reported on some, and that when I was talking about all the different things we saw at the show. Now, the interesting thing about Moritz Grossmann is that while he was an early uh, Glashütte watchmaker of some significance and merit, this is not connected to him in any other way. It was basically Christine Hutter, who was had worked for both Glashütte original and also for A. Lang and so on. She was a watchmaker, but she was also pretty savvy about watch business. And so in 2008, she got the name, she got the rights to the name to use Moritz Grossmann, and started her own business. And it's done quite well. I mean, it's a true independent. Both of the other major Glashütte, the A. Long and Son and Glashütte Original, are both owned by somebody else. So the only original independent in Glashütte is Moritz Grossmann. Now, let's take a look at the different models they have. First of all is the Benu. Now, Benu is interesting because it was named after an Egyptian bird. It was a heron that had been consumed by fire, laid an egg, and when the egg hatched, out comes a new heron. And it was spelt with two N's instead of one. When it was translated to German, they lost one of the N's somehow. Anyway, so this is the origins of the name, and it sort of fits. Here was Moritz Grossmann had been gone for a long time, and it's reborn under the directorship of Christine Hutter. And most of the watches are very clean and very simple, and they're all mechanical wind-up. All right? I couldn't find an automatic. Maybe I missed one. There are quite a few movements that the company makes. We'll see in a little while. Okay, so the first line is a Benu, and it has a lot of different. This line probably is the most complex in the sense that the different types of movements that are used. If you'll notice that the one at the top is sort of what we'll call the pure Benu. The other three down on the bottom, they're a lot more complex in certain ways. All three of them have a pusher button at 4 o'clock, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So anyway, so this was the first line of watches that they made, and like I said, they're all clean. By the way, I put on my El Laura because it has that same kind of clean, simple lines. It doesn't have the same kind. I'll tell you right now, it doesn't have the same kind of movements. But these watches, I think all of them were either gold or platinum. I don't know if they use any non-precious metals. I mean, this is like A. Long and Son. Now remember, the founder of Moritz Grossmann worked for both Glashütte Original and for A. Long and Son. Okay, so this was their first line. The second thing I wanted to talk about were some of the interesting features in the movement. Again, this is from the what's called Caliber 100, and it's the very first movement that came out of the company. It was manufactured by the company. And the first thing I wanted to notice is notice the close fit. The movement and the case fit one another. You don't have one of these little bitty movements in a big case like this one happens to have. And they have what's called the Glashoot ribbing, which looks a lot like Geneva waves. And they use a lot of engraving on the cocks and some of the other, not on the plates, but on, well, some of the plates maybe, but they're very elaborate. And they have, one of the other things is a very fine index adjuster. And this is done so the little pointer on the regulator, you don't just like that, but you have a little screw and it can get very, very precise. Another thing that's interesting is that they use what's a 2/3 base plate. Now that means that instead of having the entire round base plate, they only use 2/3 of it. When we talked about the Elongenson, they had one of the inventions really that came out of Elongenson was called the 3/4 plate. Now remember, the 3/4 plate in part was designed for ease of production, and so that you didn't have to try to fit everything between these two plates, but rather you could have a big hunk of it outside that you could work on, such as the regulator and the balance wheel and the escapement. Now, 2/3 cuts away a little more than 3/4. And one of the things that Christine Hutter wanted, she wanted people to see the movement. She's very proud of the movements. Okay, which is, to me, that's the heart of a watch. Okay, so the next line is the Atum series. And here you have all of these have what's called the Grossmann winder with a pusher. And what it does is, for those of you who like hacking, you're going to love this, okay? Because it takes away some of the problems with hacking. And what happens is that when you pull out the crown to set the time, the winder and pusher come into action. Now you can set the time with the like you normally would, but it pops back into place. When you pull a crown out to set the time, it pulls out and then goes back. And instead of winding at this point, what you're in a mode, you're in a setting mode, and so you can get everything set just the way you want to, and then push the pusher and boom, it's back into what is a regular mode. Then you also can wind it. Very interesting innovation. And so you can set it right to exactly the time you want it, and then look at your iPhone and hit the button and make sure that the time is just right. And so this is the Autumn series. They're probably called the Tomb or something like that. My pronunciation of German isn't any better than my pronunciation of French, and I love them. Both languages I like a lot. Okay, the next series is the Tefnut series, and here now the caliber 102 that is used in it has a 3/5 plate, which cuts away even more, and so when you flip it over on the back, you can see more of the movement underneath the top plate. And again, like I said, this is one of the things that Hutter wanted to do. She said he wants people to see this movement they have, and so the finishing reflects that. I mean, you get finishing that even within within the wheels, the teeth on the wheel get special treatment as well. Now, in the bottom one on the far right is a very interesting one. I showed you a little in the last video I did on the watch time show. The If you wind it by turning the band, right? It works something like it's sort of in fact it's got two bar lugs, one at the top and one at the bottom, and one of them you turn for the winder. Notice it has the little pusher at the 4 o'clock still, except the winder is somewhere else. Now the other ones in this series, in the Tefnut series, don't have the pusher at 4 o'clock. I'm not sure why they use it in some and why not in others. All right, the last thing that I want to talk about is that the number of movements that Moritz Grossmann has. It has a huge number of movements for this little company that started in 2008 and didn't have its first watch until 2010. But these are all of their manufactured movements, every single one of them, which is saying a lot. Now, one of the interesting quotes that I had was like when they started, they said they had a vision to open a manufacturer focused on in-house construction so that the name Moritz Grossmann would never be sullied by using ETA IBOSH movements, which I thought, oh my God. Well, people say, well, I got an ETA, that's just, I paid $5,000 for it. Why? Why would anybody do that? I think it's sort of interesting. Now, it's true that the Moritz Grossmann charge a lot, but they really do a great deal. They have two assemblies of their movement, just like a Long & Son. Is that on the first assembly, they get it all put together, and when they have the beat rate stability within their in-house criteria, which are very strict, get it working, works great, they take it apart, okay? And once they take it apart, all the modules and the parts are cleaned, and the 2/3 plate is adorned with the glass hoot ribbing, which I think is sort of an interesting, not Geneva waves, but glass hoot ribbing, and then it's put together again. That's a lot more work than most brands have. The special device on it was invented by a glass hoot watchmaker by the name of Alfred Hellwig, and so this is very much influenced. Here the founder, who is a watchmaker and also a business person, has put together this company with even the people that she hires, the ratio of the people, most of them are watchmakers. She has some people in marketing and a few other things, but the whole focus of this company is watchmaking. So I find it a very interesting one. It's true, like I said, these are fairly expensive watches. The least expensive is, I believe, it starts around 11,000. One other thing that they've done too, that to me is very interesting, they have set up their online marketing presence with Chrono24. Chrono24 set up this special deal with other watchmakers as well, and any watchmaker can do it, is that they become sort of the outlet. So if you go to Chrono24, you look for Moritz Grossmann, you'll find all of the prices, and they're sourced directly from Moritz Grossmann. Now, they do have their own boutiques. They also have authorized dealers, just like any other watch company. But for online, Moritz Grossmann and some other smaller watchmakers have done the same thing. So it's sort of an interesting thing to do. Now, right now, it's very hard to find a used Moritz Grossmann. Because they're new, because people really like them, they hang on to them. The same thing is true with Harbring too. You can't find a used Felix. They're just not around. There may be some store with a new one that they weren't able to sell, but boy, those things are as rare as hen's teeth. And so anyhow, this is for a formal, if you want a really, really good watch that is all about the movement first, and you have a exhibition window that shows it off. You have even a base plate that's cut back so you can see more of it. To me, it's really, and like I said, they're all manual. None of them are automatic. So they have, I mean, they have a tuberon, and they have, I mean, it's not that the everything is simple for the sake of simpleness. They have enough complexity, I think. But basically, they're making a very clean, fundamental watch. Final thing, notice that the women's watches are pretty much the same size. I think these little bitty women's watches, I wouldn't wear one. I mean, except as a piece of jewelry, perhaps. But they make them big enough so they're functional watches. This guy is a nice big fat one. It's easy to tell the time with. And if you look at the Moritz Grossmann, it's the same thing. Take a look at them. I think it'll be an interesting experience. Okay, Sunday we're going to have a collection review. We have a super collection that's going to be reviewed, and I think you're going to like it. So hope to see you on Sunday. This is Bill Sanders for Watch Outside: The Art and Science of Watch Collection.